Namo Dhamma, good morning. Thank you for joining me for our daily practice check-in. Listen, listen, listen. This beautiful sound calls us back to our true home. The fourth mindfulness training. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful speech and the inability to listen to others, I vow to cultivate loving speech and deep listening in order to bring joy and happiness to others and to relieve others of their suffering. Knowing that words can create happiness or suffering, I'm determined to speak truthfully with words that inspire self-confidence, joy, and hope. I will not spread news I do not know to be certain, and will not criticize or condemn things of which I am not sure. I will refrain from uttering words that can cause division or discord, or that can cause the family or the community to break. I'm determined to make all efforts to reconcile and resolve all conflicts, however small. Dharma reading today is the first part of Following Rules, What's the Point? By Ajahn Yatiko, from Beginning Our Day by the monastics of Abhayagiri Monastery. Yesterday in Vinaya class, we were talking about how we relate to rules. As monastics, we have so many rules that are part of our lifestyle. There are countless rules that define the way we live and the way we do things. It's interesting to see how Western monks, like us, often relate to the rules in a fearful way. There's a sense of all these different rules in place, and we're trying to control and force ourselves to live within these different constraints. It can be daunting. We've heard from various teachers that following rules is not an end in itself. Ajahn Sumedho speaks about Ajahn Chah as being a monk who was very scrupulous with the Vinaya rules, but who didn't look or act like a limited person. Certainly, when I listen to Ajahn Chah's Dhamma teachings, they have a vitality that's incredibly fresh and vibrant. This seems related to how he followed the monastic discipline and rules, while not being attached to those rules. For ourselves, however, we need to be careful and discerning in this particular area of non-attachment. We often hear the phrase, "Don't get attached to rules." I remember when I first came across Buddhism, I found teachers who weren't attached to rules and sometimes ended up making a real mess out of their lives. It seemed that their disciples suffered in many ways as well because of this confused relationship with following a moral discipline. As a result of witnessing that, whenever I hear the phrase, "Don't be attached to rules," a red flag goes up for me, as well as a bit of fear. It's important to recognize the potential for self-deception or self-delusion when we take on this attitude and say to ourselves, "I'm not going to be attached to the rules." We want to be cautious about this kind of attitude because it can easily slip into following or not following some moral guideline simply based on our likes or dislikes. We can then throw out the rules we don't like any time we feel they're getting in the way of satisfying a particular craving we have or avoiding some aversion. We go ahead and do as we please, regardless of the consequences it may have for us or others, based on the excuse, "I'm not attached to these rules." At the same time, it's important to remember that we're here to be free from suffering. Although these guidelines help us, we're not here to live by a bunch of rules that are going to force us into conforming, keeping us nice and safe, or making us so bland that we don't have any problems. That's not the Buddhist path to freedom. The Buddhist path is to find contentment within limitations. We have limitations, forms, and practices that serve as containers, the rules and standards of the Vinaya. These aren't conventions that we have to feel limited or constrained by. We can learn to relax around them, finding a sense of inner contentment as we follow them and keep them in mind. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you for joining me today.